Welcome to Reddit Revenge Stories. Did you know over 90% of people watch these videos but don't subscribe? If you enjoy stories of justice and payback, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to like the video if you're ready for today's story. Let's get to the story. I never thought I'd be the kind of man to tell a story like this. I used to think betrayal happened to other people, those in messy relationships or fragile marriages. Not to me, not to us. Not to Hannah and me. We had been together for 11 years, married for 8. From the outside, we looked like the textbook definition of a stable, loving couple. And for a long time, I believed that too. Until the truth hit me like a freight train. Hannah and I met at a university conference. I was giving a talk on urban design, and she was in the audience with her friends. We talked during the networking hour afterward and clicked almost immediately. She was smart, witty, had a quiet kind of charm. She wasn't loud or showy, but she had this way of looking at you like she was really listening. And that's all I ever really wanted. Someone to see me. Someone to believe in me. Our early years were beautiful. We traveled, shared dreams, made mistakes, and learned from them. We fought like any couple, but always made up. We had late-night dinners, inside jokes, lazy Sunday mornings. I was proud to be her husband. We built a life, bought a modest home, adopted a dog, worked hard. She became a counselor at a local school. I worked for a design firm. We were happy. Or at least I was. The signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. It started subtly. A change in her energy. She started coming home later than usual, saying work was stressful, or that she was helping a student. I believed her. Of course I did. She was my wife. But the late nights grew more frequent. She became less present, distracted even when we were together. Her phone, once left on counters or the coffee table, was suddenly always face down or tucked away. She laughed less. Our conversations became transactional. What do we need from the store? Did you feed the dog? Have you paid the bills? The warmth was fading. One night, I tried to bring it up. I asked if everything was okay. She smiled weakly, touched my hand, and said she was just tired from work. That she needed space to think. That things were just a bit overwhelming right now. I believed her again. But the gut feeling wouldn't go away. That quiet, awful whisper in the back of my mind that something was off. I started noticing more. She'd leave the room to take certain calls. She'd go quiet when I walked into the room while she was texting. Her smiles weren't reaching her eyes anymore. I wanted to be wrong. I prayed I was wrong. Then came the day everything changed. It was a Saturday. She said she had a school workshop to attend and would be gone from morning until late evening. Normally, I'd never question it, but something felt different that day. I don't know if it was her tone or the fact she avoided eye contact when saying goodbye, but I knew I had to follow my instinct. So I waited 10 minutes after she left, got in my car, and followed from a distance. She didn't go to any school. She didn't even head toward the district office. She drove across town to a neighborhood I didn't recognize, parked in front of a small brick townhouse. She didn't hesitate, just walked up and knocked. The door opened almost immediately. A man stood there smiling. She smiled too, bigger than she had in weeks, and kissed him. I remember that moment in slow motion. My wife, kissing another man, laughing, stepping into his house like she belonged there, like she had done it before. My chest felt like it had caved in. My stomach twisted into something unrecognizable. I drove away. I don't know how I made it home. I sat on the couch for hours that day, staring at the wall, trying to process what I had seen. A part of me wanted to confront her that night, but another part, the colder, more calculating part, knew that if I acted on emotion, I'd only get half the truth. I needed to know everything before I made my move. I needed to be sure. So I waited, and I watched. Over the next 3 weeks, I became someone I barely recognized. I tracked her movements, watched her patterns. I even bought a small voice recorder and slipped it onto her car one night. The things I heard, I can't even begin to explain how that felt. She spoke to him with softness, laughed in ways she hadn't with me in months, talked about our spot and our weekend. She told him she felt alive with him, that she hadn't felt this way in years. What about me? What about the man who stood by her when she lost her mother? The man who held her through her panic attacks? Who supported her dream to go back to school? Who took a second job when her hours got cut? What about the man who loved her unconditionally? That man was invisible to her now. The final straw came when she told him she was thinking about leaving me, that she just needed to find the right time. She said she didn't want to hurt me, that I was a good guy, but that we had grown apart. She didn't know I was listening. She didn't know I had already heard everything I needed. That night, I lay awake and made a decision. I wasn't going to scream or throw things or beg her to stay. I wasn't going to confront her in a dramatic scene. I was going to do what she never expected. I was going to make her regret ever betraying me. The plan took shape slowly. I started by acting exactly the same. If she was going to play this game, I would too, but better. I stopped asking questions. I pretended not to notice the late nights or the emotional distance. I played the part of the clueless husband. I even planned a weekend getaway pretending it was to reconnect. She declined, saying work was too busy. I smiled and told her I understood. Meanwhile, I consulted a lawyer. Quietly, discreetly, I gathered every piece of evidence, photos, recordings, bank statements. I began moving funds into a separate account. I changed the beneficiary on my life insurance. I found an apartment and signed a lease under a friend's name. Piece by piece, I built my exit, not just from the marriage, but from the version of myself that had tolerated this betrayal. And then, when the time was right, I began phase two. I started asking questions, but gently, planting seeds. I asked if she was happy, told her I felt like we were drifting, that maybe we should talk to someone. I watched her squirm. She fed me lies with the same face she once used to say, "I love you." I nodded. Took note. One evening, I left my phone on the kitchen counter with a fake text conversation open. A message from a fake contact named Lisa that said, "Last night was amazing. Same time next week?" I made sure she saw it. She did. And that's when the cracks really began to show. Because you see, Hannah didn't want me anymore, but she didn't want anyone else to have me either. The moment she suspected I was seeing someone else, her entire attitude changed. She became suspicious, jealous. Suddenly she was home earlier, asking where I was going, who I was texting. The hypocrisy would have been hilarious if it hadn't been so tragic. I let it build for 2 weeks, let her stew in her confusion. And then, on the quiet morning of our wedding anniversary, I left a note on the table. "You made your choice. I'm making mine. You'll hear from my lawyer soon. I've already moved out. Don't try to call. You lost that right when you kissed him." I walked out the door without looking back. But that wasn't the end. That was just the beginning. The day I walked out of that house, I felt both hollow and free. It was a strange mixture of grief and control, like tearing your own wound open to stop the slow bleeding. I didn't cry. Not that day. I'd already cried all the tears I had in me. What was left now was cold focus. I had been the faithful husband, the forgiving man, the patient listener. But that version of me was gone. What Hannah did awakened something else. Something quiet, precise, deliberate. The apartment I moved into wasn't much. Just a one-bedroom with pale walls and squeaky floors. But it was mine. It was free of lies. And it became the base for everything I would do next. Because leaving her wasn't the end. If I had simply vanished from her life, she would have moved on with him, happily. No, I needed her to feel what I felt. I needed her to experience the ruin she'd sown. Revenge didn't come from rage, it came from logic. First, I let the silence do the talking. She tried to call 5 times the first day, then texts, then emails, all of them starting soft and confused. "Where are you? Can we talk? I'm so sorry if I hurt you." But the apologies were hollow. She wasn't sorry she cheated. She was sorry she got caught. She wanted control back, and my silence denied her that. Then came the second phase. Exposure. Remember those recordings I made? The photos, the voice clips? I didn't blast them online. That's not my style. But I did send a neatly organized file to her workplace's HR department, not maliciously, just as a concerned spouse. You see, she had been having an affair with someone in a position of authority at the school, a married man himself, who was technically her supervisor. School policy was strict about this kind of misconduct, especially when it compromised professional integrity. Within a week, she was placed on leave pending investigation. I heard through a mutual friend that she tried to deny it at first, but the proof was undeniable. Voicemails, time-stamped pictures, her own voice telling him, "We have to be more careful." That was all the district needed. I didn't gloat. I didn't even respond to her frantic messages once the suspension hit. I was already working on step 3. You see, when you're married for long enough, you learn each other's secrets. I knew how she hid money. I knew which accounts she never told anyone about, which apps she used, which email passwords she never changed. Not because I snooped, but because we used to share everything. She forgot that. I hadn't. Over the years, she had been setting aside money, likely planning for the life she wanted to build with him. I found those hidden savings and used my access as a legal spouse to transfer the funds into our joint account before the divorce officially started. Then, I used that money to pay off the last of my student debt and my lawyer's retainer. Clean, legal, final. When I served her the divorce papers, she finally stopped pretending. The mask slipped. The sweet apologies turned bitter. "You're cruel," she texted. "You planned this. You manipulated me." That made me laugh. Me? Manipulative. I was just following the blueprint she gave me. Of course, her lover didn't stay loyal either. Turns out, once the investigation at the school began, he panicked. His own marriage was at risk. He ghosted her, completely vanished. She lost her job, her relationship, her financial cushion, and now her marriage. That would have been enough for most people, but not for me. I wanted her to understand the depth of her betrayal, to live in it. So I started showing up, not in person, but in presence. I posted pictures of me smiling, traveling, reconnecting with old friends. I took up hobbies she always rolled her eyes at: photography, hiking, writing, and shared them online. Not for her, but where I knew she'd see them. And I made sure to never mention her. That silence was loud. One night she sent me a message that simply read, "I miss you." I didn't know what I had. I didn't reply, because I wasn't finished yet. One of our mutual friends, Emily, had always been kind to me even when others took Hannah's side in the beginning. Emily reached out, asking if I wanted to meet for coffee and talk. I said yes. We talked for hours. She never pushed me to move on or forgive. She just listened. It was nice, human. A few weeks later, I found out Hannah confronted Emily, told her to stay away from me, that I was trying to hurt her, that I was twisting the truth. That's when I knew Hannah hadn't changed at all. She still thought she was the victim in a story she wrote with her own hands. She still believed that somehow I would come back, that I would soften, that I would forgive her. She didn't understand. This wasn't about punishment anymore. It was about freedom. Revenge had done its job, not in destroying her life, but in reclaiming mine. I filed for the final divorce hearing and closed the chapter with dignity. I didn't ask for alimony. I didn't ask for the house. I let her keep what she had left, because I knew that the emptiness she felt now would echo louder than anything I could ever say. When we finally met in court, I looked her in the eye and said, "You lost me the moment you thought I'd never find out." She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared, like she didn't recognize the man standing in front of her. And maybe she didn't. Maybe she never really knew me. After the hearing, I walked out into the cold air, took a deep breath, and felt something I hadn't in months: peace. But this wasn't the end of the story. Not quite. Because sometimes revenge comes quietly, and sometimes it comes with one last twist that leaves the betrayer questioning everything they ever believed about control. After the final court date, I thought that would be it. No more messages, no more tangled emotions, no more ghost of a woman I once knew haunting my every thought. I had done everything I needed to do. I left the marriage with my head held high. I had exposed the truth, removed the lies, and rebuilt myself from the ground up. What more was there to say? But sometimes closure doesn't come in silence, it comes in confrontation. A few weeks after the divorce was finalized, Hannah showed up at my apartment. I didn't give her the address. She must have asked around, maybe even followed me. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I'd just come back from a bike ride. I saw her standing near the stairs as I walked up, arms crossed, wearing the same coat I had bought her 2 Christmases ago. "Can we talk?" she asked. I should have told her no. I should have walked past her like she didn't exist. But something inside me, the part that had spent years loving her, wanted to see what she would say. So I let her in. She looked different, tired, not just from lack of sleep, but like someone whose life had cracked and collapsed behind their eyes. She sat on my couch, glanced around the room like it was foreign to her. Because it was. This place held no memory of her, and that unsettled her. "I messed up," she said finally. I didn't answer. "I know you hate me," she continued, "and I deserve it. I just, I don't know who I became. It wasn't supposed to happen like that." I almost laughed. Like affairs come with scripts. She told me she was sorry, that she never meant to fall for someone else, that it started during a rough patch and she felt neglected, that he made her feel seen, that she got carried away. Carried away. That's what she called 2 years of deception. I let her speak. Every word she said was like a mirror showing me how far I'd come. I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't feel pain. I felt nothing. And that was my revenge. When she finally ran out of words, she looked at me, eyes searching mine for something, remorse, pity, even hope. "What do you want from me, Hannah?" I asked. She hesitated, then whispered, "Another chance." And that's when I gave her the final blow. I told her no, not because of what she did, but because of who she became. "You didn't just cheat on me," I said. "You ended us the moment you decided I wasn't enough and didn't bother telling me. You had every chance to speak up, to try, to leave honestly, but you chose betrayal. And now you want forgiveness just because it's convenient." She didn't expect that. I could see it. She thought the man sitting in front of her was still the same man who used to light candles on her bad days, the man who once cried when she broke down after her mom's funeral. She didn't realize that man had been buried under the weight of her lies. I walked her to the door, and before she stepped out, I said something I had rehearsed 100 times in my head. "Your greatest mistake wasn't the affair. It was thinking I wouldn't survive it." She left without another word. That moment was the true end. Not the papers, not the silence, but that final goodbye. After that, I felt free in a way I didn't know was possible. I spent the next few months rebuilding, not just my life, but my purpose. I poured myself into work and started writing on the side, small essays about healing, truth, resilience. I didn't use names. I didn't seek sympathy. I wrote because it helped me make sense of everything. To my surprise, people began reading them, commenting, sharing. I realized I wasn't alone. So many others had been through similar stories, different faces, different betrayals, but the same scars. And in that shared pain, I found something powerful: community. One day, I received a message from a man who said, reading my story helped him confront his own situation. He was on the verge of giving up, but said my words gave him clarity. That was the moment I knew my pain had purpose. I turned the essays into a blog, then a podcast. I never intended it to grow, but it did. People wanted to hear truth without sugarcoating, stories without dramatics, just raw, clean, honest healing. And somehow my voice became a part of that for them. That was my real revenge. Not the silence, not the exposure, not the divorce. My revenge was living well, thriving, becoming someone stronger, smarter, freer. Hannah? I don't know where she is now. I stopped following. I stopped checking. I stopped caring. Maybe she found someone else. Maybe she's still searching. But I'm no longer part of that story. And that's all that matters. There's a quote I once read: "You cannot start the next chapter of your life if you keep rereading the last one." I closed that chapter, and I've never looked back. I still believe in love, in loyalty, in the kind of partnership built on respect and truth. I just no longer confuse comfort with connection. I no longer excuse red flags just because I want something to work. If you're reading this and you've been betrayed, let me tell you something. It hurts, yes, but it won't destroy you, not if you don't let it. You're not broken. You're not unworthy. You're not stupid for loving someone who didn't love you back the right way. You're just human. But don't stay in pain longer than you have to. Don't give them the power to define your worth. Heal, and then rise. Because the best revenge isn't revenge at all, it's peace. It's growth. It's the quiet joy of knowing that you faced the storm and came out stronger on the other side. That's my story, and I wouldn't change a thing.